ConCourt rejects Tresford Chali's bid to save Chawama seat, Tasila Lungu out. Zambia's constitutional court has delivered a decisive blow, dismissing lawyer Tresford Chali's attempt to save the Chawama parliamentary seat. What led to this dramatic ruling? Why did the court reject the application so firmly? And what does this mean for the political battle ahead in Chawama, a constituency with enormous political significance? Stay with us as we break down the legal reasoning, the political implications, and what happens next. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. Well, it's been quite a week here in Lusaka, hasn't it? The corridors of power have been buzzing, the courtrooms have been packed, and once again, Zambia finds itself at a constitutional crossroads. And today, we bring you a story that has everything: political dynasties, legal battles, constitutional crises, and a grieving daughter caught in the machinery of state power. The gavel has fallen. The court has spoken. And the Chawama seat is officially vacant. Picture this: a daughter who hasn't buried her father in 6 months, fighting court case after court case in a foreign land, forced to choose between mourning and representing her constituents. A constitutional lawyer mounting a last-minute legal crusade to save her parliamentary seat. A controversial constitutional amendment hanging in the balance. And a constitutional court judge, with the stroke of a pen, dismissing it all as procedurally flawed. But here's the question that should keep us all awake tonight: when does the pursuit of political power cross the line into cruelty? When does adherence to parliamentary procedure become heartlessness? When does the letter of the law trump the spirit of compassion? And perhaps more troubling, why was the urgency to remove Tasila Lungu so intense that it couldn't wait for her father's burial? What was at stake? Was it truly about absent representation, or was there something else, something bigger, lurking behind the speaker's ruling and the court's rejection? Consider this: Edgar Lungu, Zambia's 6th president, died on June 5, 2025. It is now December. He remains unburied. Not because the family can't make up their minds. Not because of indecision or family conflict. But because the Zambian government took them to court in South Africa, fighting over where a man's body should rest. And while that legal battle rages on, while the Lungu family appears in courtroom after courtroom dressed in funeral attire that never sees a grave, the daughter who stood by her father's wishes has lost her seat in parliament. Is this justice? Is this democracy? Or is this something far more calculated, a surgical strike against a political dynasty, timed to perfection, executed with clinical precision? And here's the final twist: Bill 7, the controversial constitutional amendment that could reshape Zambia's political landscape, is heading for a vote. Tasila Lungu would have had a say in that vote. She would have represented Chawama's voice on a matter of national significance. But now, she won't. Her seat is empty. Her voice is silenced. And the timing, well, the timing is impeccable, isn't it? So tonight, we ask, what really happened in that constitutional court chamber? What were the arguments? What did the judge say? And what does this mean for Zambia's democracy? Stay with us, because this story is far from over. Factual foundation, background and timeline. The revelation came to light on Wednesday, December 4, 2025, when Constitutional Court Judge Martin Musalut delivered his ruling at the Constitutional Court in Lusaka. The application before him was filed by prominent constitutional lawyer Tresford Chali, seeking to halt Speaker of the National Assembly Nelly Muti's decision declaring the Chawama parliamentary seat vacant. Let's rewind and understand how we got here. June 5, 2025, former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu dies in South Africa at the age of 68 while receiving medical treatment. His death sets off a bitter dispute between his family and the government of President Hakainde Hichilema over burial arrangements. The family insists Lungu left specific instructions that Hichilema should not attend his funeral, citing years of political enmity. The government insists on a state funeral in Zambia. June 25, 2025, just hours before a private burial ceremony is set to begin in Johannesburg, the Zambian government obtains a court order from the Pretoria High Court stopping the burial. The Lungu family arrives at the courthouse in funeral attire. The memorial service proceeds, but the burial is blocked. August 8, 2025, the South African court rules that Edgar Lungu's body must be repatriated to Zambia for a state funeral, against the family's wishes. The family files an appeal. The legal battle continues. Edgar Lungu remains unburied. Meanwhile, his daughter, Tasila Lungu, Member of Parliament for Chawama constituency, stops attending parliamentary sessions. She is in South Africa, attending court hearings, fighting for the right to bury her father according to his wishes. September 12, 2025, President Hichilema opens the fifth session of the 13th National Assembly. Speaker Nelly Muti gives Tasila Lungu a directive: report to Parliament within 14 days after her father's burial, or within 14 days after the session opens. With the burial still unresolved due to ongoing court proceedings, the clock begins ticking. October 2025, Tasila Lungu does not return to Parliament. Instead, she requests additional time until the court case over her father's burial is resolved. She proposes attending parliamentary sessions virtually, a system that was fully established during the COVID-19 pandemic and used successfully by many legislators. November 18, 2025, the matter is referred to the Committee on Privileges and Absences. Tasila is invited to appear. She does not attend. The committee conducts a thorough examination and makes a recommendation: allow her to represent Chawama virtually until her father's burial is concluded. November 28, 2025, Speaker Nelly Muti rejects the committee's recommendation outright. In her ruling, she declares, "While I accept that the Committee on Privileges and Absences conducted a thorough examination of the matter, I do not agree with its recommendation to allow Ms. Lungu to attend sittings of the House virtually." Virtual attendance cannot substitute for physical representation. The Chawama seat is declared vacant. The Electoral Commission is referred to begin preparations for a by-election. December 2, 2025, Tresford Chali files an urgent petition in the Constitutional Court challenging the Speaker's decision. He argues that Speaker Muti relied on the House's standing orders rather than a code of conduct prescribed by an Act of Parliament, as required by Article 72(2)(c) of the Constitution. He contends that standing orders are internal procedures not backed by parliamentary legislation, making the declaration illegal. December 3, 2025, as if the stakes weren't high enough, acting leader of government business announces that the controversial constitutional amendment Bill No. 7, which seeks to expand Parliament from 156 to 211 seats, introduce proportional representation, and make sweeping electoral changes, will be reintroduced for voting. The first deputy speaker signals the vote could happen before Parliament adjourns on Friday. Chali files an extreme urgent application seeking to halt the Bill 7 vote until his main case challenging the Chawama seat vacancy is concluded. His argument is simple but powerful: allowing the vote to proceed would deprive the people of Chawama of representation on constitutional matters that affect them directly. December 4, 2025, Judge Martin Musaluk delivers his ruling. And it is devastating for Chali's case. Direct evidence, quotes and testimony. In his written judgment dated December 4, 2025, Judge Musaluk was clinical, methodical, and unequivocal in his reasoning. The judge began by addressing the fundamental issue before him: whether to grant an interlocutory injunction staying the Speaker's decision. His findings were clear from the outset. The stay application is procedurally flawed, Judge Musaluk wrote, and I decline to grant interlocutory relief on that basis. But he didn't stop there. He went further, examining the merits, or lack thereof, in Chali's arguments. On the question of urgency, the judge was particularly pointed. He noted, evidence shows that the Chawama lawmaker has been absent from Parliament since June 2025. June 2025. That's when Edgar Lungu died. That's when Tasila Lungu's world fell apart. And Judge Musaluk noted it, clinically, factually, without sentiment. He continued, no concrete proof was offered that she will be available to vote. There it was, the cold calculus of law. Tasila Lungu had been absent. There was no guarantee she would return. Therefore, the urgency was not justified. But Judge Musaluk went even further. He addressed what he called the urgency ground. In his view, this ground did not justify interrupting parliamentary business. Parliamentary business. The phrase hangs in the air. Because what is parliamentary business but the work of the people? And who are the people if not the constituents of Chawama, whose member of parliament was being removed while she fought for the right to bury her father? The ruling stated explicitly that the issues raised would require full consideration at the substantive hearing rather than by a single judge on an interlocutory application. In other words, this matter is too complex, too weighty, for me to decide right now. It needs a full hearing. But in the meantime, the Speaker's decision stands. Tasila Lungu is out. The seat is vacant. And Bill 7 can proceed to a vote. Now, let's be clear about what an interlocutory application is. It's a legal term that means a request made to a court for a temporary order during an ongoing lawsuit, before a final judgment is reached. Think of it as asking the referee to pause the game while you figure out if the rules were followed. Judge Musaluk was essentially saying, "I'm not pausing this game. Play on. We'll figure out if the rules were broken later." But there's a problem with that logic, isn't there? Because by the time the full hearing happens, Bill May 7th have already been voted on. The by-election may have already been called. The damage may be irreversible. Tresford Chali's argument, for the record, was constitutional in nature. He contended that Article 72(2)(c) of the Zambian Constitution requires that a member of Parliament's conduct be judged against a code of conduct prescribed by an Act of Parliament. But Speaker Moody, he argued, didn't use a code of conduct prescribed by an Act of Parliament. She used the House's standing orders, internal rules that, while binding on parliamentarians, are not legislation passed by Parliament itself. It's a technical argument, yes. But it's not a trivial one. Because if the Speaker can declare a seat vacant based on internal rules rather than codified law, what's to stop future speakers from using the same mechanism to remove MPs for political reasons? Chali also pointed to Article 266 of the Constitution, which states that when the Constitution uses the word prescribed, it means provided for in legislation. And standing orders, he argued, are not legislation. The Constitutional Court will hear the main matter eventually. Chali is expected to appeal Judge Musaluk's ruling. But as of now, the immediate battle is lost. Tasila Lungu herself has remained relatively quiet through much of this ordeal. But on Friday, November 29th, she posted a message to her Chawama constituents on Facebook. "Thank you," she wrote, "to my wonderful team of counselors, community members and constituency staff who continue to coordinate and work tirelessly to serve you." And then, perhaps hinting at her next move, she added, "Where there is a will, there is a way." Deeper analysis, implications and reactions. So what does all of this mean? What are the broader implications of Judge Musaluk's ruling, Speaker Moody's decision, and the removal of Tasila Lungu from Parliament? Let's start with the legal question. Is the Speaker's use of standing orders rather than a legislated code of conduct constitutional? It's a question that legal scholars are already debating. The Law Association of Zambia has not yet issued a formal statement on the Chawama seat specifically, but the organization has been vocal about the need for constitutional processes to be followed rigorously, particularly in the context of Bill 7. And speaking of Bill 7, that's where the political implications become impossible to ignore. Bill 7 was first introduced in May 2025 and was declared unconstitutional by the Constitutional Court in June 2025 for failing to meet the requirement of wide public consultation under Article 79 of the Constitution. The court ruled the amendment process was not sufficiently people-driven. But the government didn't give up. President Hichilema appointed a 25-member technical committee in October 2025 to undertake consultations and revive the process. That committee submitted its report in early December 2025, and now, despite ongoing legal challenges and civil society objections, Bill 7 is being reintroduced for a second reading on December 15, 2025. Here's where it gets interesting. Tasila Lungu, as a member of parliament, would have had a vote on Bill 7. She represents Chawama, a constituency in Lusaka with strong opposition support. Her vote could have been crucial, depending on how the numbers fall. But now, she's out. Her seat is vacant. And unless a by-election is held extremely quickly, which is unlikely given that general elections are scheduled for August 2026, the people of Chawama will have no representation when Bill 7 comes to a vote. Is this coincidence? Or is it strategy? Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, a prominent voice in Zambian politics and a known supporter of the Lungu family, wrote a scathing editorial titled "A Daughter in Pain." In it, he argued, "This is not justice. This is not leadership. This is cruelty. It is impossible to overstate the emotional torment the Lungu family has endured." Months after his passing, Zambia's sixth president remains unburied, not because of family conflict, not because of indecision, but because of a legal case brought against them by the very government now declaring Tasila's seat vacant. He continued, "To strip her of her seat during the most painful chapter of her life is not just unfair, it is unkind." On the other side, government supporters argue that parliamentary attendance is not optional. They point out that the Constitution is clear: if an MP is absent without permission for a specified period, the seat becomes vacant. Rules are rules, they say. And if Tasila Lungu couldn't fulfill her duties, she should have resigned. But here's the counter-argument. The Committee on Privileges and Absences, Parliament's own body tasked with examining these matters, recommended allowing Tasila to attend virtually. They recognized the extraordinary circumstances: a daughter trapped in a foreign court battle over her father's unburied body. They proposed a compassionate solution that balanced her personal tragedy with her constitutional duty. Speaker Moody rejected it. Why? Virtual attendance cannot substitute for physical representation, she ruled. But is that really true? During the COVID-19 pandemic, many MPs attended virtually. Laws were passed. Debates were held. Democracy functioned. So why couldn't Tasila Lungu do the same, at least temporarily, until her father was laid to rest? Critics suggest the real issue isn't about attendance. It's about power. Edgar Lungu and Hakainde Hichilema have a history that goes beyond normal political rivalry. When Lungu was president, he had Hichilema arrested and charged with treason in 2017 for the crime of his convoy not giving way to the presidential motorcade. Hichilema spent 4 months in prison. When Hichilema became president in 2021, Lungu's wife and children were charged with corruption and money laundering. Tasila Lungu herself was arrested in February 2025 on money laundering charges. Her mother and sister were detained on fraud charges in 2024. Her brother faces corruption charges. The family insists this is a political vendetta. Now, with Edgar Lungu dead but unburied, and his daughter removed from parliament, the Lungu political dynasty appears to be systematically dismantled. But there's a human cost to all of this. A daughter who can't bury her father. A constituency left without representation. A legal system that, technically correct or not, feels merciless. And then there's the question of Bill 7 itself. The Oasis Forum, a coalition that includes the Law Association of Zambia, the Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, the Council of Churches in Zambia, and other civil society groups, has pulled out of constitutional reform talks, citing illegality and lack of sincerity by the government. They argue that Bill 7 is still legally void following the June 2025 Constitutional Court ruling. They say the consultations conducted by the technical committee were insufficient and don't meet constitutional requirements. They warn that the government is rushing through a process that should be deliberate, transparent, and genuinely people-driven. The government, for its part, insists Bill 7 is necessary to prevent a constitutional crisis, to implement the Electoral Commission's delimitation report, and to create more inclusive representation through proportional seats for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Who's right? That depends on who you ask. But one thing is clear: the process is contested, the legitimacy is questioned, and the removal of Tasila Lungu at this precise moment adds another layer of controversy to an already explosive situation. So there you have it, viewers. The Constitutional Court has spoken. Judge Martin Musaluk has dismissed Tresford Chali's application. Tasila Lungu's Chawama seat is vacant. And Bill 7 is moving forward, with or without her voice. But the story doesn't end here. Chali is expected to appeal. The main case challenging the constitutionality of the Speaker's decision will still be heard. And Edgar Lungu, Zambia's sixth president, a man who once wielded immense power, remains unburied, 6 months after his death, as his family continues to fight in South African courts. This is the state of Zambian politics in December 2025. It's messy. It's painful. It's complicated. And depending on your perspective, it's either the rule of law in action or the ruthless exercise of political power dressed up as constitutional procedure. What do you think? Was the Constitutional Court right to dismiss Chali's application on procedural grounds? Should Speaker Modi have allowed Tasila Lungu to attend Parliament virtually? Is Bill 7 a necessary reform or a power grab? And most importantly, when should compassion override strict adherence to parliamentary rules? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a conversation. This is about more than just one seat in Parliament. It's about what kind of country Zambia wants to be. It's about whether we treat each other with humanity, even when we disagree politically. It's about whether our laws serve justice or merely power. Thank you for watching this edition of InspirAfrica Official. If you found this analysis valuable, please like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops, because something tells me we haven't seen the last twist yet. I'm Nakash, and I'll be back with more news, more analysis, and more uncomfortable questions that need to be asked. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop asking why. See you in the next one.